Welcome to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, and this is another Snippets of Wisdom episode where I select my favorite, most insightful moments from previous episodes of the podcast. Today's snippet of wisdom comes from my conversation with the entrepreneur 𝗍𝗪𝗋, who over the years spent over $500,000 on personal development courses. I chose for you 3 short snippets from that conversation, and they are all about becoming more aware of our inner knowing, tuning into our body's intelligence for our decision making, and about calibrating our intuition. I hope these snippets are as insightful for you as they were for me.
So it's this conscious awareness. I started to become more consciously aware of how my body was responding to things. I'd go to a certain event and I wouldn't be as all in and excited. I had this resistance and I could feel it. But I never had that resistance explained to me. Think of it like your inner CEO or your inner guide. They're guiding you constantly. But we're so in our head, right? And this is a lesson that, younger brother taught me and quite a few people in my life that, get out of your head and get into your heart. And I couldn't comprehend that, right? I was so in my head from an analytical perspective and business and structure, and that's just how I am. But I always had these feelings that I couldn't actually logically make sense of until I started to test it. And the more I started to listen to that and tune in, and that was predominantly through meditation and contemplation and having time to myself, off technology, more time in nature. So I was able to listen to this inner knowing a lot more. And I guess the realization was that stop looking for things outside myself and stop looking for the answers through somebody else, because all the answers are within. The problem is we can't listen to ourselves because we've been so programmed and there's so much chatter going on up in the mind. So the minute I could kind of step out of the head and more into the body and then observe this monkey mind and the chatter that would go on, the more I started to observe things. So that was when things really changed, when I could start to grasp what was taking place, that there's this identity called 𝗍𝗪𝗋, but that's just a name. There's this body, there's this spirit, there's this soul. And, you look at people like Eckhart Tolle talk about, what's the thinker? And when you first hear that, you kind of scratch your head saying, what's the thinker? What's he talking about, right? But when you start to embody that and you start to then observe the thoughts going on, you start to think, okay, so my mind isn't me. Oh, right, okay, so if my mind isn't me, then who am I? And all these questions start to come up. And that was kind of the beginning of a different era for my personal development journey. And I started to look more within as opposed to looking outside myself for answers. So I'd ask myself the question, what's that painful? Why is there so much struggle at certain periods of my life? And life's been a roller coaster. And now that I look back, I was not on my path. I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. And that's why I got the bricks over the back of the head. So the biggest thing we can all take away is learning our decision-making strategy. What is our decision-making strategy? How does our body communicate with us? Listening to our intuition. And that was my biggest takeaway, was get out of the head, listen to the body, because it always knows best. It holds all the answers for us. Might not hold the answers on how to manage your team and, manage your finances in a business perspective, or, navigate a certain challenge, in a relationship, but it always knows what's best for us. And it's going to show up in ways that is an energetic response as opposed to words. And that's where we need to then learn what that feeling or that response is. So that was my biggest takeaway. And that even today, looking back, there's different techniques, different things we can do to start to calibrate that intuition. So you get this feeling and it happens again and again, but you don't know what it means because there's no translation manual. You can't go to Google Translate and type in this feeling and then get a response. It doesn't work like that. So you've got to have a few experiences and test and measure, and then all of a sudden you've now got this feedback loop and you're like, right, that's that feeling again. Yeah, okay, I know it's not good. All right, so do I have to give it a definition? Not necessarily. It just means that I need to avoid that particular situation because it's not meant for me. So that's been my biggest learning out of all of these things. And our body intelligence holds all the answers if we learn how to tap into that. Stop chasing something outside yourself. Stop pursuing the next best thing, the next shiny object. Entrepreneurs, we've got that constantly. I think the biggest lesson for us all is to go within. And you can start that today by downloading a meditation, for example. You can start practicing some of the examples I mentioned around calibrating your intuition, right? So it could be when it comes to dating, it could be with your colleagues. It could be just watching people walk past the street. It could be walking into a restaurant or a cafe going, I wonder what that person's going through. And if you can have the conversation with them to get some sort of feedback, you can just set up really simple experiments. I wonder, is that person having a good day based on their energy levels? And you can ask them, hey, good morning, good evening, are you having a good day? And it might jolt them at first, but that's a really simple thing you can do to start to listen to yourself and trust that. And the more that you practice that, the more you will trust it. And the more you trust it, the better the decisions you are, or the better decisions you'll make, and the faster you'll get on your own path in life. And then you'll know which programs are right for you.
Thank you for tuning in. You can listen to the full conversation in episodes 107, 108. The link is in the show notes. And I also have a free and useful resource to share with you, a curated catalog of the 10 best episodes of the podcast in 3 main categories of life. So the top 10 episodes about money, the top 10 about health, and the top 10 about mastering your personal development. To get this free ebook, go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/top10. You will also find the link in the show notes. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,